The room buzzed with energy. A crowd of fitness enthusiasts, YouTube fans, and curious onlookers had gathered at the gym for what was supposed to be a casual meet and greet. But the atmosphere shifted the moment an ex-Navy SEAL stepped forward. Tall, muscular, and radiating confidence, he looked around the room and declared in a booming voice, "I could take on any man here. No exceptions." The statement hung in the air. Whispers traveled across the crowd. Some laughed nervously. Some leaned forward, intrigued. Cameras immediately started recording. Phones popped out to capture the bold proclamation. Nobody expected such a challenge to be thrown in such a casual setting, and the ex-SEAL clearly enjoyed the attention. He began pacing, flexing slightly, talking about his experience, the grueling training, the missions he had survived, the intense discipline it took to become who he was. Every word he spoke carried weight, and the crowd reacted accordingly. Some cheered him on, impressed by the confidence and authority in his voice. Others, however, exchanged skeptical glances, questioning whether bravado alone could back up such claims. In a corner of the room, JakePaul watched quietly. He had heard the claim, and while he didn't say a word, his eyes followed every movement of the ex-SEAL. He wasn't intimidated. He was assessing, sizing up the situation like a predator quietly observing its prey. The room had a mix of tension and anticipation. Everyone sensed that something was about to happen. Then, with a calm but unmistakable gesture, Jake raised his hand. It wasn't aggressive, nor was it boastful. It was simply a signal that he was present, that he had heard the challenge, and that he wasn't afraid. The crowd immediately went silent. Cameras focused on the exchange, capturing the subtle but powerful moment. But what Jake did next shocked everyone standing there. The ex-SEAL paused, noticing the raised hand. A smile crept across his face, almost like he had underestimated the challenger before him. The tension was palpable. Everyone in the room leaned in, waiting for the next move, and little did they know, the showdown was about to get even more intense. The energy in the room had shifted. What started as casual excitement had become a tense standoff. The ex-Navy SEAL continued his boast, pacing in front of the crowd with a confidence that seemed unshakable. "I've trained for situations most men couldn't even imagine. I've faced danger every day, pushed myself to the absolute limits, and I guarantee I can beat anyone in this room," he said, his voice echoing across the gym. The crowd responded with mixed reactions. Some whistled and clapped, clearly impressed by the confidence and experience he radiated. Others furrowed their brows, unsure whether this was a genuine challenge or just a display of arrogance. Phones were out, recording every word and movement. Live streams had already started, and comments were pouring in from viewers who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Meanwhile, JakePaul stood a few feet away, his expression calm, almost casual. He didn't interrupt, didn't engage verbally. He simply watched. Every subtle movement of the ex-SEAL was cataloged in Jake's mind. He wasn't intimidated. Far from it. Instead, he exuded a quiet confidence that only made the room lean in closer. Fans and bystanders could sense it. This wasn't just about brute strength. This was about mindset, presence, and control. The ex-SEAL flexed his arms and began demonstrating a few combat stances, showing his technique and agility. "I've faced opponents stronger than you've ever imagined," he said, turning toward Jake with a challenging smirk. You might be famous on YouTube, but you wouldn't last a second against someone like me." Jake's response was simple. He raised his hand. Just one hand, almost casually, as if to say, "I'm here. I accept your challenge." The gesture alone was enough to stop the ex-SEAL mid-sentence. The room went silent. Phones hovered, waiting for a reaction. A faint murmur of excitement spread through the crowd. People whispered to each other. Did he just raise his hand? Is Jake really stepping up? The ex-SEAL's eyes narrowed. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. He had expected people to be in awe of him, maybe even intimidated, but this calm, unshaken response from Jake threw him off balance. He paused, then chuckled, a mix of amusement and disbelief. Interesting, he muttered. I wasn't expecting anyone here to actually respond. The tension in the room was electric. It wasn't a fight yet, but everyone knew it was coming. Conversation stopped. Phones continued recording. Even spectators who didn't know much about combat could feel the energy, the clash of confidence and presence between a seasoned ex-SEAL and a high-profile fighter like JakePaul. Then, Jake stepped forward slightly. Not aggressively, not threateningly, just enough to signal that he was willing to engage. His eyes locked on the ex-SEAL's, calm and focused. In that moment, everyone in the room felt it. This wasn't just a casual interaction. This was a battle of wills, of respect, of ego, and possibly skill. The ex-SEAL smirked, trying to regain control. All right then, he said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Since you want to play, let's see what you've got. Show me what you're made of. The crowd erupted into whispers and murmurs. Cameras zoomed in. Even spectators far in the back felt the weight of the moment. Everyone wanted to see how Jake would respond. Would he step up confidently, or would he falter under the intensity of the ex-SEAL's bravado? And then Jake did something subtle but brilliant. He didn't rush. He didn't react with words or gestures. Instead, he stood tall, relaxed, and gave a small nod, acknowledging the challenge without letting his emotions take over. The simplicity of his calm, controlled demeanor sent a clear message. He wasn't intimidated. He wasn't desperate to prove himself, and he didn't need to. At that point, a few audience members began to cheer quietly, impressed by Jake's composure. Others whispered to their friends, "This is about to get crazy," while some simply raised their phones higher, eager to capture history in the making. The live stream numbers were skyrocketing. Comments poured in from viewers all over the world. JakePaul is fearless. Who even dares to step up to a SEAL? AAP Kiss Country or Kiss City Esi Dek Rahi Ho? Comment Karkabad Ein. The ex-SEAL, noticing the growing attention and online audience, felt a surge of adrenaline. He stepped closer, gesturing with his hands to emphasize his dominance. I fought people in real combat situations. You're just a YouTuber. Fame won't save you here. Jake didn't flinch. Not a muscle twitched. He simply held his ground, exuding confidence without arrogance. The subtle contrast was clear to everyone. Here was a man with experience and raw skill, and there was a man with confidence, strategy, and focus, both formidable, but in different ways. The crowd leaned in. The energy was palpable. Phones were recording, live streams were trending, and whispers filled the room. This is about to be insane. In that moment, it was clear this wasn't just about physical skill anymore. It was a mental chess game, a battle of confidence and presence. And everyone knew the next move could shock them all. The tension in the room had reached a fever pitch. The ex-SEAL, still brimming with confidence, stepped closer to JakePaul, flexing his muscles subtly and speaking with a mix of challenge and authority. Look, kid, I'm not here to play games. You think you can step up to someone who's been trained to handle life or death situations? This isn't just about strength. It's skill, experience, and discipline. You really think you stand a chance? Jake remained calm, not a hint of arrogance or panic in his voice. He replied simply, I didn't come here to underestimate anyone. I came here to test myself, and I'm not afraid to face the truth. His tone was steady, confident, and it made the crowd lean in closer. You could feel the room holding its breath, sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The ex-SEAL chuckled, shaking his head slightly, amused by Jake's calmness. Most people would have been intimidated by the reputation and presence of a seasoned fighter like him. But Jake's composed demeanor seemed to throw off the veteran. He raised a hand, almost like a teacher or an experienced athlete, and gestured to the floor. "If you want to prove anything, show me now. Let's see if your confidence matches your words." The crowd erupted in whispers and cheers. Phones were out in full force, live streams trending in real time. Spectators in the back were craning their necks, trying to get a better look at the interaction. Even the seasoned trainers and martial artists in the room were intrigued. This wasn't just another gym showdown. There was something different about the dynamic between a Navy SEAL and a high-profile fighter like JakePaul. Jake's response was simple but powerful. He didn't rush. He didn't yell. He didn't make grand gestures. Instead, he simply squared his shoulders, held eye contact with the ex-SEAL, and took a calm step forward. That single, deliberate movement sent a clear signal to everyone present. He was serious, he was confident, and he was ready. The ex-SEAL, noticing the shift, smirked but decided to push further. "Confidence is good, kid, but it doesn't win fights. I've fought in environments where hesitation meant death. You think YouTube fame gives you that edge? Step up or step aside." His voice grew louder, his presence dominating the room. Jake remained composed. He raised his hand again, subtly, as if acknowledging the challenge without aggression. The crowd went silent, sensing the tension like an electric charge. There was a collective realization. This was no longer just a verbal showdown. This was a battle of wills. Who would crack first? Who would let ego take over? Audience members began whispering to each other. "This is insane. A real SEAL versus JakePaul? I can't believe he's staying calm." Phones hovered, ready to capture every subtle gesture. One of the spectators even commented on the live stream, "This is the showdown we didn't know we needed." The ex-SEAL, clearly frustrated by Jake's calmness, began pacing slowly, attempting to unsettle him. "Look, kid, I can sense hesitation. Most people freeze under pressure. Don't tell me you're going to let your fame or confidence get in the way of reality." Jake, undeterred, replied, "I've faced pressure before. It doesn't shake me, and I don't let anyone's ego define what I can do." His calm, unwavering tone began to win the crowd over. Whispers of admiration spread like wildfire. He's not just confident, he's in control. As the verbal exchange continued, the tension between them became almost palpable. It wasn't a fight yet, but the energy suggested that a physical or skill-based challenge was inevitable. The ex-SEAL flexed, demonstrating a few rapid combat stances, while Jake mirrored none. He simply observed, analyzing, and waiting for the right moment to respond. If you were in Jake's position, would you stay calm or walk away? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to mention your city and country. Crowd members leaned in, holding their breaths. Phones continued recording, the live stream chat exploding with viewers weighing in. Jake's not intimidated. "I'd pay to see this fight. Respect to both of them. This is insane." The ex-SEAL, sensing the crowd's admiration for Jake's composure, grew slightly tense. He was used to dominating situations with his experience and reputation, but Jake's calm defiance was new. He realized that this wasn't just a test of physical skill. This was psychological. Whoever controlled the energy of the room had the upper hand. Jake remained still, absorbing every move, every gesture, every word. He wasn't acting impulsively. He was calculating, strategic, and commanding attention without raising his voice or losing control. The contrast between the ex-SEAL's aggression and Jake's calm presence was undeniable. The room leaned in closer, some whispering, some gasping, all captivated by the growing tension. Phones were recording, live comments pouring in, and the audience could feel that the next moment, whether a challenge, a demonstration, or a confrontation, would define everything. One subtle glance between the two men spoke volumes. Mutual respect had begun to form, but so had the unspoken competition. Both were formidable in different ways: experience versus strategy, reputation versus confidence, instinct versus calculation. The crowd collectively realized this wasn't just entertainment. This was a lesson in presence, composure, and courage. And everyone in the room and online knew one thing for certain. The next move would shock them all. The room was electric. Every person in the gym could feel the tension like static in the air. Phones hovered above heads. Live streams were exploding, and whispers spread like wildfire. This is going to be insane. The ex-SEAL, still brimming with confidence, squared up, taking a step closer to JakePaul. His eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to challenge him. But it was clear he was now focused entirely on Jake. "You see, kid," he said, his voice firm but controlled, "fighting isn't just about strength or size. It's about precision, timing, and knowing when to strike. Let me show you a quick demonstration." With that, the ex-SEAL shifted into a rapid series of combat stances, demonstrating his speed, coordination, and technique. He moved fluidly, showing the control honed from years of Navy SEAL training. Every punch, block, and step was calculated. Some audience members instinctively flinched as he demonstrated a powerful elbow strike, careful but undeniably dangerous looking. The crowd erupted into whispers and gasps. "He's insane. I can't believe how fast he moves." JakePaul didn't flinch. He didn't mirror the movements or engage physically yet. Instead, he observed with sharp, calculated eyes, analyzing each stance, each motion. He shifted slightly, adjusting his own posture, not because he felt threatened, but because he knew this was a mental game as much as a physical one. Every subtle movement mattered, and Jake's calm composure only added to the crowd's anticipation. Then the ex-SEAL smirked, his voice dripping with challenge. "See that? That's what years of real combat training looks like. You think you can match that, kid?" Jake's response was understated but powerful. He raised one eyebrow and simply said, "I don't match anyone. I adapt, and I never underestimate my opponent." The calm, almost confident simplicity of his statement made the crowd lean in even closer. Phones zoomed in on Jake's subtle movements. His presence alone was commanding attention. The ex-SEAL's smirk faltered for a moment, replaced by a hint of intrigue. He realized that this wasn't going to be an easy demonstration to intimidate Jake. The crowd noticed the shift, a momentary crack in the SEAL's supreme confidence. Some whispered, did he just realize Jake might actually hold his own? Then, sensing an opportunity, the ex-SEAL invited Jake to try a simple defensive move, just a basic reaction drill, nothing extreme. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation, cameras focused, ready to capture any slip or stumble. Jake stepped forward calmly. He wasn't rushing. He mirrored the stance the ex-SEAL demonstrated, but with his own subtle adjustments. He reacted smoothly to the SEAL's motions, blocking and countering with precision, but without aggression. It wasn't about overpowering. It was about composure and presence. The crowd gasped collectively. Even those who had doubted Jake were impressed. They saw that his calmness, timing, and confidence made him more than just a YouTuber. He was a calculated fighter capable of handling pressure. Whispers traveled. "He's not just brave. He knows what he's doing." "I didn't expect that." The ex-SEAL paused, clearly analyzing Jake's reactions. He had expected fear, hesitation, or even mistakes, but there were none. Jake was composed, confident, and observant. It was a rare combination the SEAL hadn't anticipated. Audience members began recording more aggressively, live streams exploding with comments. "JakePaul is holding his own. This is next level. Who even predicted this?" Phones zoomed in as Jake subtly adjusted his stance, maintaining eye contact with the ex-SEAL, showing that confidence can be as powerful as brute skill. Then the ex-SEAL, visibly impressed but unwilling to admit it, nodded slightly. "Not bad," he said, almost begrudgingly. "You've got presence, I'll give you that. But don't get cocky." Jake just smiled faintly. He wasn't arrogant. He didn't need to be. The demonstration had already spoken for him. The crowd's energy surged. People were whispering, cheering, and recording feverishly. This wasn't a fight yet, but it felt like one, a silent duel of skill, strategy, and respect. The room collectively held its breath as the ex-SEAL reset his stance. Jake did the same, signaling silently that he was ready for the next round of observation, the next challenge. Everyone knew the tension wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. Every subtle movement, glance, and nod now carried meaning. The crowd was fully captivated, phones recording every second, and the live stream was exploding. This showdown wasn't just physical. It was psychological, a chess game of presence, confidence, and control. And the next moment, whatever it was, would shock them all. The room was electric. Every spectator, every phone camera, every live stream viewer could feel the intensity. The ex-SEAL, still radiating authority, squared off with JakePaul. He had expected compliance, hesitation, or at least visible intimidation. What he got instead was composure, a quiet, steady confidence that unnerved him more than any display of brute strength ever could. "Kid," the ex-SEAL said, his voice loud enough to fill the gym, "I've faced men in life-or-death situations. I've fought opponents bigger, stronger, faster than you. You think this is a game?" His eyes were locked on Jake's, daring him to falter. Jake, unfazed, smiled slightly. "I don't think this is a game. I know it's a test, of focus, of composure, of courage. And I'm ready." His calm tone contrasted sharply with the ex-SEAL's intensity, and the crowd noticed immediately. Phones recorded every nuance. Whispers filled the room. "He's not scared. Jake's holding his ground." The ex-SEAL flexed subtly, demonstrating a defensive stance, a few rapid strikes, and some quick footwork. "See that?" he said, gesturing to his movements. "That's what experience looks like. Most people freeze when they face it. You won't." Jake raised his hand again, a small, deliberate gesture that captured attention. He wasn't mirroring the SEAL's moves exactly, but he responded to the stances with precision, subtle counters, and controlled movement. Every reaction was calculated, not for show, but for effect. The room felt like it was watching a silent duel, each man testing the other's skill and presence without throwing a single full punch. The crowd leaned in. Every whisper, every gasp, every phone recording amplified the tension. Spectators were transfixed, sharing the moment on social media, commenting live. "Jake's calmness is insane. Who even expected him to stand like that? This is more than a YouTube showdown. This is mental warfare." The ex-SEAL, now slightly unsettled, paused for a fraction of a second. That split-second break told the audience everything. Jake's confidence was more than bravado. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't reckless. He was strategic. The contrast between the SEAL's forceful dominance and Jake's calm, measured approach shifted the energy of the room. Then, the ex-SEAL decided to push the challenge verbally. "I've fought in situations where hesitation meant death. Confidence won't save you here. You might have fame, you might have an audience, but none of that matters when you're in the fight." Jake's response was deliberate. "Experience is valuable. Fame is irrelevant. But calmness, observation, and timing, those make a bigger difference than raw power. And that's something you're going to see firsthand." His calm, commanding tone drew a collective hush over the crowd. Even the ex-SEAL, trained for high-pressure encounters, felt a flicker of surprise. Phones zoomed in. The crowd held its breath. Even spectators unfamiliar with combat techniques could sense the tension. This wasn't aggression, it was presence. It was psychological dominance. Jake's mere composure was enough to challenge the SEAL's authority without aggression. Then came the first subtle physical demonstration. The ex-SEAL lunged lightly, testing Jake's reaction. Not a strike intended to hurt, but a test of reflexes and timing. Jake moved with precision, blocking, shifting, and responding without overextending. The crowd gasped collectively. Even live viewers commented, "He's holding his own. JakePaul is reading the moves." The ex-SEAL paused again, acknowledging, ever so subtly, that Jake's reactions weren't accidental. This wasn't a YouTuber panicking. This was a calculated approach to handling pressure. Jake, sensing the crowd's growing excitement, raised his hand slightly again, signaling readiness without aggression. The subtle gesture held a powerful weight. Confidence. Not cocky, not aggressive, just controlled, focused, and commanding. The ex-SEAL, momentarily thrown, adjusted his stance and nodded slightly. "All right, kid," he said, voice a mix of respect and challenge. "You've got nerve, but don't let it go to your head." Jake responded with the calmest smile, simply standing tall, maintaining eye contact. The crowd erupted in whispers and cheers. Phones zoomed in, live stream spiked, and the atmosphere reached a crescendo. This wasn't just about physical skill anymore. It was about respect, presence, and strategy. Every subtle move, glance, and word carried weight. The crowd could feel it. The tension had peaked, but neither man had fully revealed their hand. The room was fully captivated, and viewers worldwide were glued to the live stream, witnessing a showdown that balanced skill, composure, and mental warfare. The gym was buzzing with tension and anticipation, every eye fixed on the two men in the center. Phones hovered above heads, live streams were trending, and whispers traveled through the crowd like wildfire. The Ex-Sral had expected a conventional reaction, intimidation, hesitation, or even nervous laughter, but JakePaul had none of that. His calm, measured composure had turned the room upside down, and now, even the veteran fighter could feel the shift. "Kid," the Ex-Sral said, slightly quieter this time, "I've faced men bigger, faster, and stronger than you. Most people would have folded by now. You got guts, I'll give you that. Or are you really ready for this?" Jake didn't flinch. Instead, he took a single step forward, just enough to close a fraction of the distance without aggression. His eyes locked with the Ex-Sral's, unblinking and steady. The crowd noticed this wasn't bravado or bluster. It was absolute control. Jake's presence was commanding the room, and for the first time, the Ex-Sral felt the weight of being challenged in a way that words or intimidation couldn't counter. Suddenly, one of the bystanders gasped loudly, pointing toward Jake. "Wait, that's JakePaul." A ripple ran through the crowd. Phones zoomed in, live stream viewers spiked, and a mix of cheers and stunned murmurs filled the air. Some people in the room whispered urgently, "No way. That's JakePaul in person." The YouTuber fighter is standing up to a Navy SEAL. The Ex-Sral froze, blinking in disbelief. His expression shifted from confidence to slight shock. He had trained for high-pressure encounters, faced life-or-death situations, and confronted opponents with real combat experience. Yet he hadn't anticipated the crowd recognizing JakePaul. The sudden awareness added another layer of pressure. The world was watching, online and offline, and this wasn't just a test of skill anymore. It was a public spectacle. Jake didn't gloat. He didn't smirk or taunt. Instead, he used the moment to assert control subtly, standing tall and composed, letting the crowd see that confidence and strategy could match raw experience. The energy in the room shifted dramatically. The audience wasn't just watching a duel of skill anymore. They were witnessing a mental and psychological battle unfold. The Ex-Sral, realizing the situation had changed, tried to regain authority. He flexed his stance, demonstrating defensive and offensive positions. "I've trained in real combat scenarios. This isn't a game, and your presence here doesn't change that." Jake responded simply, his voice calm but firm. "Experience is valuable, but control, observation, and composure are just as powerful. And anyone can see the difference." The subtle jab hit harder than any physical strike. The crowd reacted instantly, murmuring in agreement. Phones recorded every second as Jake continued to hold his ground. People online commented rapidly, "JakePaul isn't intimidated. This is next-level composure." Even the SEAL looked surprised. The Ex-Sral's demeanor shifted further. He had been confident in controlling both the space and the crowd, but Jake's calm presence, combined with the sudden recognition of his identity, made the veteran rethink his strategy. He realized that this wasn't about physical domination anymore. It was about influence, focus, and the power of presence. The crowd erupted as Jake raised one hand slightly, not in challenge, but as a subtle signal of authority and acknowledgement. The gesture was enough to command attention, showing respect to the Ex-Sral without ceding any control. Phones zoomed in, live stream viewers commented frantically, and spectators whispered, "JakePaul just turned the tables." Some audience members began clapping, others cheered, while a few muttered in disbelief at the unexpected twist. The ex-SEAL, visibly affected, stepped back slightly, nodding subtly. The dynamic had shifted entirely. The challenge wasn't over, but it was now clear JakePaul was no ordinary opponent. Engagement moment. Do you think JakePaul could actually outsmart and hold his own against a Navy SEAL? Comment yes or no below. Jake used the moment not to gloat, but to emphasize respect. He glanced briefly at the ex-SEAL, nodding subtly. The crowd noticed the gesture and responded positively. This was courage combined with dignity. Phones captured every detail as live-stream viewers from around the world expressed their amazement. The ex-SEAL, recognizing the shift in energy, stopped his verbal challenges momentarily. He now understood that this wasn't just a test of physical skill. It was psychological, strategic, and about who could command the energy of the room. Audience engagement moment. Who would you bet on if this went further? Type Jake or SEAL in the comments, and share where you're watching from. As the room settled, Jake addressed the crowd with a calm but commanding voice. This isn't about proving who's stronger or tougher, he said. It's about respect. It's about composure, focus, and understanding that real strength comes from a mind as much as the body. Never underestimate anyone, and never let anyone's ego intimidate you. The crowd erupted in agreement, clapping and cheering, some even chanting Jake's name. The ex-SEAL nodded in acknowledgement, realizing that the event had shifted from intimidation to inspiration. Spectators recorded the final moments, knowing they had just witnessed something unique, a true clash of experience and strategy, respect and courage. Within hours, clips of the event had gone viral on social media platforms worldwide. Millions of views, thousands of shares, and countless comments praised Jake's composure and respect, while the ex-SEAL earned admiration for his skill and presence. The story became a global conversation, not just about physical ability, but about mental strength, humility, and courage. In the end, the showdown wasn't about a winner in a traditional sense. JakePaul's calm strategy and confidence had shown the power of presence and observation, while the ex-SEAL's experience reminded everyone of the value of skill and training. Together, they had created a moment that would be remembered, shared, and discussed for years. Final call to action. If you believe confidence, composure, and respect are stronger than ego, type respect in the comments, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and epic showdowns like this. The crowd dispersed, but the energy lingered. Phones recorded every last gesture, live streams continued to buzz, and online viewers debated, cheered, and celebrated the incredible showdown. It was a defining moment, a viral story of courage, strategy, and respect that no one in the room or online would ever forget.